said that he got calluses under the bottom of his feet. And I remember we used to go up to Sassafras. There was a department store up there. And you could get a dress, 2 for $1, a house dress for 2 for $1. And you could get a pair of shoes for $1.98. And if you, that is if you were affluent, and if you could had the $1.98. But usually we got the 98-cent shoes. And but we always cooked those pintos. And I've had people to tell me, I will not eat a pinto. I will not eat cornbread because I ate so much during the Depression. But that's what you ate. And in the summertime, there was always wild greens. And I remember the milkweed. You broke it up and you made green beans. And people canned, if most people had hogs. And you made your own lard. And you made your own sausage. You canned the sausage, canned the ribs. And of course you salted the hams and the shoulders down.
Did you keep hogs?
Yep. Yeah, we had hogs. And we had the hand grinder. I left that hand grinder in New York. I brought the cleaver to West Virginia. And you ground up that, you always had a special tub. You made the sausage in. And you grind up that sausage. Even the little children ground the sausage. And you cook those skins. You put those skins in the stove. And you rendered that lard out of those skins. And the chitlins. They were so good. And the first thing you cooked when the hog was killed, you cooked what they call the liver and the lights. And you made potatoes. And of course all Southerners done that. You made potatoes. And you threw an onion in there. We didn't have celery, unless it was some that grew out in the garden. But, and you made your quilts, the crazy quilt. And you didn't throw away anything. You took the sheets, and when the inside...
I'm really worried about that yellow jacket.
And when the inside of the sheets were so thin, you split it down the middle and turned the outsides in, and you had a sheet. But you had sheets. And it was, you didn't, as I said, you didn't throw away anything. And I remember my grandmother with the fireplace. She baked her cakes because there was always a backlog. In the coal fields, there was no fireplaces. Only in the country towns like Red Fox and places like that, you had fireplaces.
Did you and your husband live in the camp up here?
We lived right up there at the top of that hill up there. It wasn't too far from where we are now. And that was the black camp. And we lived almost to the top.
Were the camps segregated?
Yes, camps were segregated.
Where was the white camp?
They lived along the way here.
So
along the bottom?
Mm-hmm.
Was the black camp more primitive than the white camp, or was there a difference? Were the houses different?
They were all built on the same style. Mm-hmm. And there was we got plenty of fresh air because during the Depression, you weren't able to buy that building paper And if you could get enough, few pennies together, you'd buy a whole roll of building paper and paper the house with. And that made it much warmer.
Was there any relationship really between white women and black women, aside from working for?
No, no, there weren't, unless, now I remember when I lived here, there was a Methodist church just as you turn up the hollow, and the Presbyterian church. And during the Depression, well, there was always toys and missionaries, and you could get things from the churches, just like there are now. You know, that was always that way. That the United Presbyterian Church and the Presbyterian Church of the North would always send care boxes, toys.
Did you have any children while you lived here?
I had one. My oldest child was born right up there, and the man said, Dr. Pigman. Dr. Pigman lived he lived up there because they always had a housing for the doctor. And the doctor always lived in the camp. And before Dr. Pigman came, they had a doctor, Dr. Grant. And of course, Dr. Grant just bent his little elbow off. And finally, they got Dr. Pigman in. Well, Dr. Grant had been there so long, they did not want Dr. Pigman. And they were very unfriendly to him when he first came there. But Dr. Pigman then moved down to Vico because he was in hostile territory up here. And he lived in Vico. He moved to Vico.
What was it like having a child back in those days?
Well, you had the babies at home. And if you were in labor too long, he would go. The doctor would come. And sometimes they would stay. But a lot of times they'd say, I'll be back later. You're not going to deliver right now. And I remember Dr. Grant came up, and my sister, when she had her first child. And he came up. And he had a big German Shepherd dog. And he was so out of it, he just went out and laid out on the bank until someone went and called him and told him to come in. And sometimes they just lay down if you had an extra bed. They just lay on that bed. And sometimes they had nurses. And they would send the nurse. And they say, don't call me until it's time. You go and you stay. So there was a lot of butchery in those days. If we had known about malpractice, there would have been a lot of suing at that time. Babies born with birth defects. And of course they called all children born with birth defects. At that time, that was a birthmark, or the baby had been marked by something.
How did it go for you?
Well, she was a normal birth, and there was no problems. And so Dr. Pigman was just getting in the door at that time, and he stayed. And the person that lived upstairs above me, she came and she stayed with me, and she took care of the baby. But and you stayed in the bed 7 days. I tell them now, no wonder women had so many babies, because they could. It was a time of rest.
What break you get?
Okay, I need to stop because my baby is going to be very unhappy. Yes, okay. Let's Well, we can begin.
Do you still have that pen? I have it now.